Hello, welcome to another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Coller here, along with Sam Ekstrom. Remember, if you want our Viking-centric draft guide, go to purpleinsider.substack.com. Sign up for just 1 month, and you get all of our draft coverage and the 72-page draft guide as well. All right, Sam, speaking of the NFL draft, let's make our bets. We're getting very close to the draft now. Let's put it down on paper. If you had to gamble on what player the Minnesota Vikings select in the first round, who would it be?
You know, if we're gambling, we're looking for value, right? So the favorite is never the exact way to go. I think that offensive line is probably the favorite. I think that Darisaw, Slater, probably not Vera Tucker. Probably Darisaw and Slater would be the co-favorites at this stage. So if we're going for value, I think I'm going to go defensive line because I think they're probably going to be like 3 times higher odds than the offensive lineman. And I'm going to go with someone like Kwity Paye or Gregory Rousseau and see if I can cash that bet at a little longer number, because I just think that there's a possibility the Vikings are just going to go defense, and then save the offensive line for the next day, even though they've kind of left that left tackle spot wide open to draft somebody. But again, I'm going to go with a little bit of a longer shot there.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense if you're talking about which guy to bet on. But I'm going to say that Elijah Vera Tucker is my pick. Same sort of reasoning that, Darisaw or Rashawn Slater, if they're there at number 14, I think the Vikings would take them. But I think they're going to be taken before the Minnesota Vikings get there, and then the Vikings will trade down and take Vera Tucker from USC. And I'll tell you why I think that he's a good fit for them and a good bet would be that he has positional versatility, that he could step in and play left guard immediately. And even though we've talked about how, rookies don't always step in and they don't always dominate. We saw Brian O'Neill need a year. We saw Ezra Cleveland have a transition phase and Garrett Bradbury as well. But it's got to be better than what it was for Vera Tucker. And the scouting reports on him seem to be that if one player is going to be able to step in and at least give you solid play right away because he's a technically sound guy, I think that Vera Tucker is that player. And so the Vikings, it can't be lost on them completely that they still have this need on the left side of the offensive line. Now, whether they would take him at 14 or not depends on how high they are on him, but I would put him as my bet for them to pick. Now, if it's the defensive line, Jalen Phillips is the other name that you didn't bring up. And I know that there's some medical concerns with Jalen Phillips, but that also might allow them to trade down and to be a good bet. Now, if you were going long shot, though, longer shot than, say, Kwity Paye, who would it be?
Probably a wide receiver. I mean, that's probably like next down the line. Or corner. Actually, corner would probably be even a little longer than that. And there's not as many options, but I mean, J.C. Horn is among the most athletic corner prospects we've ever seen. He's fast. He's got good size. I don't think there's anything he can't do. And I likened him in today's story to Patrick Peterson a little bit. Very similar prospects coming out of the SEC. So I think J.C. Horn would not only be a long shot, but like a pretty awesome player to pick for the Minnesota Vikings. I would be on board with that, even though they're sort of adding a surplus at corner there, and it's not really addressing a real position of need. I would still love the pick.
Yeah, that would be a surplus for now, but for later, a potentially very important player for them. And I've said that even though, Vikings fans, I think, would be very upset about a corner, if that's the best player and that's a position of need down the road, which I believe it will be, it's not a bad pick in the first round. But I do think there will be pitchforks at US Bank Stadium if Mike Zimmer takes a corner. I'll give you my long shot. It's the actual best player available that might be at number 14. That's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. He is projected as kind of a tweener between a linebacker and a safety. But if you've watched this guy play, he is a straight up playmaker, big hitter. Kind of reminds me of the way that Derwin James was talked about a few years ago. Finds the football, and you go back a ways and you try to look for similar players, and I think this guy is totally unique, which makes it a little harder to figure out what teams will think of him because he is unique. But I look at him and I see the potential for a starting safety there who ends up being kind of a do-it-all type of safety. And again, it's not a need that you have right away, but it's a player that you could use in a lot of different ways. And Mike Zimmer talked about getting on the X's and O's and the whiteboard and trying to find new ways to use his defensive pieces. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah would be some kind of piece if he's going to get creative.
Yeah, I mean, linebacker's the position nobody's talking about, that's for sure. And the Vikings have proven that if they want one, they're going to go get one. Barr, first round. Kendrick, second round. They've dabbled in the third round a little bit too, in the fourth round a little bit too. So I guess you can't rule it out. Maybe if Parsons is sitting there at 14, he's kind of a little bit Anthony Barr-like coming out of college. So yeah, that would be the stunner. That would be sort of the abrupt turn in the narrative that nobody expects. And we didn't really even address a lot of linebackers in our draft guide either, just because it seems like they're set, not just for this year, but for a couple of years beyond this. But here we are talking about possibly a prospect like your guy at number 14.
Yeah, that's right. Anthony Barr's future could be up in the air with his contract situation. Eric Kendricks obviously will not be going anywhere for a very long time. Well, leave in the comment section who you think the best bet for the Vikings draft pick is. Make sure you listen to our longer conversations, the Purple Insider podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll catch you next time on Purple Insider Extra.